really, really exciting.
Yes, in the black.
Oh, I just want to go really quickly first, because yes. Emily, I know you're going to have to get up and run away to catch a plane.
The driver's waiting outside, and I just wrote to her to ask if I can have 5 more minutes, and she said yes.
Okay, great. So I just want to say that when Emily runs away, we still have some time in this room, so we should continue the discussion.
Oh, great.
So I don't want people to feel like it's all over. That's all.
We don't have to follow Emily.
Great. Then I have to make a quick entreaty, which is we had a kind of astonishing thing happen to this film that felt like the things that happen in the movement, which is we had a foundation run by a couple commit $100,000 to finishing the film, and we were very don't clap, I'm gonna break your heart. We signed the paperwork, we put their name in the credits, and the next day they called me and said, I've recently become a Christian, and and I realize now that the ERA is going to be used as a tool for reproductive rights, the wedge issue, and I need my money back. So we are still seeking to fill out some of the finishing funds. We have managed to replace some of them. The glorious Abigail Disney stepped in to take over a quarter of that. But we are still working on our fundraising as well. Now, if you have to choose between sending money to this theater and sending money to us, send money to this theater. But if you are excited about helping us get this across the finish line and license the rest of some of the footage that you saw here today, we would be most grateful, and you can do that all at our website, ratifythefilm.com. Because honestly, the movements move at the speed of funding, as for better or for worse, for all of our organizations, we're moving at the speed of funding. So I just wanted to share that with you. You had a question.
When we do a follow-up article in the newsletter, we'll put a link so that you can support
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the panel and everything you discussed. But there is one class, one community that needs to be brought up more, and that's people with disabilities.
Yes.
Especially those that have autism and mental health. I know I work in that field, and those people are the misunderstood, unheard of. Their voices are suppressed. So when we talk about equality for all, let's make sure those people are under there as well.
Yes. Yes.
And just to add on to that, in terms of international human rights, disability laws are actually at the forefront of human rights laws. They're the most expansive and most robust. And we can definitely take inspiration from disability laws at the international level when we interpret our state ERAs.
Okay, I'm leaving you in charge, Ting Ting, because my driver's going to leave. Thank you all so much. I'm going to get a perfect.
Hi, I'm Lisa Xiao. So I'm one of the founding member of our JAMS and also the BOPS, the Boys Up organization too. Proud mother of Elaine. I have a question thinking for you. So I'm an R&D director for a biotech company. And so one thing I think she mentioned, equality is all about the equal opportunities, the resources. The 79 cents on the dollar, I see it day in, day out. And the 60 cents on the dollar, I see it day in, day out. Many times, I'm the only woman or only sometimes minority in a boardroom, in a PAC discussion board. I was one of the keynote speaker and was right after another Nobel Prize laureate. There's people asking me, "Oh, you go to the back. This is the role for the speaker." I told him in his face that I am the next speaker. So there's a lot of things. There's one thing I'm really worried about with the upcoming trend. For example, Walmart and a couple of other big corporations, they dropped their DEA, the amendment. In my company, I'm actually kind of the sponsor for the Women and Friends ARG, our kind of associate resource group, and also with Asian team, I'm very active in addition to raising my kids. But I definitely see, I'm worried about like the days of understanding, like we have the annual like Advocate. We do this day of understanding, 3 hours, block out everyone's calendar, talk about, all these issues. This has been going so well the past few years, but, with Walmart dropping it, with a lot of funding getting cut, because it's all about the funding. When you got funding get cut, you got carpet, put underneath us. The question is, any actions, potential actions we can do today to kind of preventative maintenance to try to change the trend. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I mean, I just think that there's going to be a contraction at the federal level, and I think institutions are going to be dismantled. And I'm waiting for Project 2025 to be implemented, to be honest. So it's a little scary. But I do think that at the sorry everyone, but I think at the state level, this is the time when states can really step up and bolster the protections. And we've seen it in previous administrations when things were kind of constricting at the federal level too, where the rise of the state attorney generals. I think in New York. Tish James has been a really big leader in challenging some of these issues and being at the forefront. But yeah, I think it's all about bolstering state protections. And also, essentially, if you're in a state with a strong politics, progressive values, like good culture, and also really good laws and a potential to seize on these opportunities, I think we need to kind of like go even further and to create kind of like a safe haven for other people. I think that when it comes to reproductive rights and other issues, there's going to be real jurisdictional warfare going on. people coming into other states to access rights and access care, where it's going to be a matter of life and death for them. So I feel like my answer is always the same today, but it's all about like leaning into state elected officials, state constitutions. People like state attorney generals can issue advisory opinions based on their constitution. That's has legal authority. That's really exciting. They can kind of like chart out a new vision for equality that's very different than like the status quo that we're used to. That's no longer serving anyone but extremely rich white men.
Thank you so much. I'm the person that left the material on your seats here. I'm Dainna Papademos. I'm a sociologist teaching for SUNY, but I'm also a member of a U.S. Women's Caucus, and it's an affiliation of a number of organizations. We support the RA efforts, and we have a website. I wanted to give that to you because you can find very detailed reports on the ERA that's fact-based. We're also in the process of generating for educational value of not only of our legislators but of our students and our colleagues, shadow reports in preparation for the Beijing Plus 30 review that's coming up at the United Nations in March. All this prep work is going on now, and on the website you'll find reports on women's human rights, armed conflict, violence, and so on. A number of the topics that have come up today in addressing these issues are all detailed, fact-based shadow reports. I have a few hard copies with me if somebody would like copy today, but you will find this material on the uswomenscaucus.org site. And I think it's part of a movement is to address our attention to things on the federal level, but we're also aware of the important role the United States plays in the rest of the global community, and we're losing our stature as being leaders on the human rights effort. And one way to strengthen that is to also see that the United States is supposed to participate in universal periodic reviews that are reported to the United Nations. And wouldn't it be grand to be able to report by March, which the deadline is, that the United States has sponsored the ERA.
Could you repeat your website again?
Sorry.
Yes, so repeat the website, please.
The website is uswomencaucus.org. So www.uswomencaucus.org.
Hi, as someone who's too old to join the young feminists, and also someone on a fixed income who doesn't have a lot of money to donate to all these places that are so, deserving of, my pension and, Social Security and all that stuff. What can we do sitting here in the audience to, to help? I mean, what are ways that we can, that's why I came. I want to know what I can do. Give me a job. Give me something to do.
Yes. So join your local League of Women. It should be people's voters, I suppose, but the League of Voters, because and sign for. I want to tell everyone while you're writing about these websites, signforera.org, the Honorable Carolyn Maloney's organization. You will get up-to-date, sort of day-to-day, week-to-week information on what's happening with the ERA. And I had said earlier that I was going to pass around a sign-in sheet, but that probably doesn't make too much sense. I could pass it around and get about 25 signatures, I hope, and then fax those over to them to add your names if that would be helpful. But you can also sign it on that website, signforera.org. Also, they indicated to me that I could tell you that if any of you want to get in touch with them, to ask them personally how you can be more instrumental and active. They will guide you. They'll find out your district. They'll find out where you're closest, who is nearby, where you're living, that you could put a little bit of pressure on, calling and being in touch. I've hosted postcard parties. I mean, make no mistake about it, Prop 1 passed because of the really strongly coordinated effort that it was throughout the state of New York. I was on the task force for the League of New York, and there are about 40 to 50 women and people. I'm sorry. And it's true. Men and non-binary people are part of it. It's true that I have to break my own bad habits. Just as a quick aside, at Nassau Community College where I teach, I'm in the middle of changing the program as we speak from women's studies to women's and gender studies. All right, so I'm on it. I teach Becoming Nicole. I'm a big ally in the trans community, but it just goes to show that somebody that's been teaching for 20 years and who's older is still kind of immersed in that language that's still out there, women and men, right? And it's got to change. But so that is, and back to the young lady in the back who asked about what youth can do. Take women's and gender studies, will you? When you get to college, take women's and gender studies, because that's where you're going to learn about transgender journeys, in addition to joining Judy's organization and others. These are the courses that are making connections with organizations like the League and other grassroots organizations that are making change. You can take your class, get your credit, and work for the organization at the same time. My students do it. I set my students up in these kinds of intern situations, Planned Parenthood, etc. But back to your very good question, what can you do? Get on that website, sign for ERA, sign the petition that shows that you support the ERA. Because the more petitions that they see, the more constituents that our reps and our senators sitting in Congress see, and I agree with what Ting said, that Joe Biden might not be able to get the archivist to publish this right now, but what his speech should be geared to is all the the people sitting in Congress right now who are wondering if ERA is even still on the radar. Did that fall through the cracks? No, it hasn't. And that's where President Biden, I think, could really keep it at the forefront of people's minds as we go into 2025, a very challenging 2025.
We have a lot of resources on our website as well that you can just Google ERA Project Columbia Law School, or you can even just Google my name. I think a lot of stuff comes up there, all positive. But I don't know, this isn't a really good answer, but I think like just merely being here, engaged in this conversation, thinking about this idea, you're gonna bring it back to your community and your family members, and that's kind of how, there's like a culture of kind of spreading like wildfire. You know, when I was in law school, nobody said anything about the ERA. I never learned about the ERA in law school because it's just not on, for some reason, it can be both highly controversial and also nobody's heard of it. Or people are very misguided about it. And so it really is about, like you said before, like public education. And then you can also keep up to date on Supreme Court cases. You know, we will write advisory opinions, or we'll write like an explainer about, we just did one, I think, recently that's pretty good about Scrimeti, which is an oral argument that happened in front of the Supreme Court that has to do with Tennessee's ban on transgender affirming care for minors, a very dangerous case, and also looks to me like the Supreme Court is getting ready to essentially say that the 14th Amendment doesn't protect sex or gender at all. Very scary case, but you know, the way that we write our explainers, unpacking this very kind of like, you know, legally naughty and confusing legal doctrine for kind of general audiences, so that everyone can be kind of prepared and armed for these kind of legal cases and the impact that it's going to have on the ground. So definitely follow us and engage with the issue as you have been.
I think that we can take just one more question, and then we have got to get ready for the next show in here. But before we take the question, I just want to thank you all again so much for being here, and you really just make me love my job so much.
Awesome, Renee. This question's for Juli. As you know, like I was out there doing Prop 1 conversations and trying to explain some of the wedge issues, or eliminate the wedge that was happening, and having to fall back on personal stories. I was hoping maybe for the audience, and to his point, you could share a few of the talking points and where people could get more if they are talking to their friends and their family and their neighbors about the ERA, and how to diffuse the wedge issue when it comes to transgender children, adults, etc., the whole bathroom sports issue. Thanks.
Well, one of the things that I think is the most important that most people don't understand is that, believe it or not, biologically speaking, there is a difference between a male brain and a female brain. I found that to be really interesting. They actually function differently, and they have different sizes, if you will, in the various lobes and so forth. And in 2018, a study was done in the Netherlands, which looked at, for example, transgender women's brains, someone like me. And what they found was that the transgender women's brains were very similar to cisgender women's brains. They weren't a perfect match, but you could see that there was a difference between a male brain and a female brain, and it was, you know, towards the female brain. So the reality is when we tell you that this is who we are, this is not a lifestyle, this is not a choice. If people would understand that this is a condition that we are born with, this is genetics, this is biology, they might understand it a little bit differently. We don't penalize people who are left-handed anymore. But back in the day, maybe 100 years ago, it was a big deal. We have to get to that point when we realize that gender is fluid, that we don't just have to have two stereotypes of this is a male, this is a female, and that's it. Human biology includes a whole community of people called intersex people, which you might recognize if I use the term hermaphrodite, which, by the way, is a slur. We do not use that term. But that means a person that has, you know, biological variation that would not allow them to be put in the female box or the male box, so to speak. And so these are things that we have to have people understand. You know, we are not somebody that you have to fear. We're just as afraid when we go into the restroom as any other woman is, okay? In fact, more so. You will be able to find on social media actual videos of trans women being dragged out by their hair, dragged through the floor with people kicking them and stomping on them, okay? That's a real thing. So it's not that. And when we talk about trans athletes, we never talk about the variation in the sports. I mean, there's a difference between soccer and table tennis. There is. There is a difference between bowling and, you know, weightlifting. But they never want to be able to do that. And there's also a difference between post-puberty and pre-puberty. And it's important for the public to understand that a pubertic child, male or female, has pretty much the exact same strength and energy and so forth. And if the child goes on hormone blockers to stop their puberty, they are still not gaining the male strength, the male agility, the size, and so forth. And if they continue on cross hormones to become a trans woman, they will have no extra strength, they will have no extra size, their feet won't be big, they won't, you know, all the things that are a part of turning into a male will not happen. And so a lot of our legislators, and that includes Democrats as well, think of men in dresses. But that's not the case for our young people anymore. And so these are all points that people have to understand, and that's why it takes us 2 hours to do an education. Because we're not just going to go over, you know, well, if you like the same sex, you know, you're gay, and if you don't, it's a lot more detailed than that. There's a lot more information. And I would suggest to you that the best way to do it is, you know, if you have some questions, start Googling it and looking it up. But keep an eye, because some of the stuff you're going to run across is garbage. And some of the stuff is like, yes, really, that is the case. But just remember, no one chooses to be transgender. We are this way because we are born this way. And we're not looking to do something evil. We're not looking to hurt anyone. We're not looking to win at sports. All we want to do is live our life happily like every American and every New Yorker wants. And that's what the message is that we have to get out. Thank you for that question.
I'll kind of add what our messaging has been during the Prop 1 campaign. We worked on the language of Prop 1. We helped to contribute, that we helped to draft the language, and then saw it through different iterations through the 2 different passages. But I mean, essentially, the Prop 1's purpose was to update the New York State Bill of Rights that was written in the 30s that only protects anti-discrimination based on race and national origin, and to add all these other categories that at that time in the 30s, maybe elected officials and government officials and the culture in general, like, didn't have the ability to contemplate, right, all of these other identities. And so since that time, these rights have been affirmed in case law, in, you know, like, in legislation, in other avenues, before Prop 1 even was added to the Constitution. And so when we're talking about transgender athletes, they are protected under case law and under legislative schemes and things like that. So it really is this kind of like a huge misinformation campaign that Prop 1 is going to all of a sudden alter the reality that we know it today. It doesn't do anything because these rights already exist. What it is it's a distraction, because there is gross inequality in the athletic spaces. Women athletes are treated like underclass citizens, even though they can be superstars.